The month of May is upon us, and in this video, I want to share 3 stocks, 1 large cap, 1 mid cap, and 1 small cap that I believe could outperform the greater markets in what I expect to be a very bountiful month for Waves Capital. My name is Royce Jacob, and welcome back to the channel. So, the 3 names that we're going to be discussing today, in order from large to small, are Philip Morris, or ticker symbol PM, Palantir, or ticker symbol PLTR, and little guy for last, Veritone, or ticker symbol VERI. It's a name that many of you will be familiar with if you're familiar with the channel. So we're going to go over each of these one by one. Take a look at each of them on the chart, and as we do, I'll do my best to describe from both a fundamental and technical perspective why I'm bullish on the stock for the month of May. Okay, we'll also, of course, talk about upside price targets as well, and I'll give you guys a little bit of insight as to how I'm personally trading these. Okay, but before we dive into the charts and talk price targets and whatnot, I do want to take a look at the newsletter that I just sent out this morning, quickly going over just kind of my general thoughts on the market environment as we kick off the new month. And, you know, we got some pretty lays to check out too. Okay, so let's read over this and then we'll dive into the charts once again. It's May. It's going to be May. Over here in the islands, May 1st is Lei Day. This is to celebrate Hawaiian culture and all things leis. They say that April showers bring May flowers, and I think that this concept will apply to the Waves portfolio as well. Before we move on to the major day of macro, which we will discuss a little bit below, today we had the FOMC meetings conclude. We had the Fed decision. Markets going crazy, of course. I'll give you guys my thoughts on that after we reflect on the month of April, which was wild. It was the best month for the Waves portfolio in quite a while, and we experienced some truly life-changing gains through our Veritone and Philip Morris call options. Yes, we could have played these positions better. Yes, we could have taken a little more profits looking back. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, but didn't. Everything is 2020 in retrospect. What's done is done. And all that matters in the end is that we closed out the month with some very meaningful profits. And I just want to spend a little more time on this, you guys. This applies to any time you'll encounter a hot streak, not only in the markets, but in life as well. There's so many parallels between life and the markets that this applies to life in general pretty much, right? Even when you're doing good, even when you had a good time and you didn't do something perfectly, you can tend to kick yourself a little bit. You can beat yourself up because it was so obvious looking in the rearview mirror. But there is no reason to kick yourself. There is a point. There is value in looking back at where you went wrong, what you could have done better, and applying those learnings to the future, which is the point here. But again, you guys, if you didn't play something perfectly, don't beat yourself up. Don't kick yourself. There's always going to be more plays. There's always more fish in the sea. There's always more flowers to pick. And just the general spirit of Mayday, I guess. But keep your heads high, you guys. Again, over Waves Capital, it was very volatile. There were a lot of ups and downs, but in the end, we did lock in some very, very meaningful profits. We ended the month up, and that's ultimately, that's what matters. You know, there will be ups and downs, but all that matters overall, if you really want to make this sustainable for yourself, is that you go up and to the right for a moderate to long period of time. Okay, there will always be volatility in the day-to-day price action. There's always going to be short-term volatility, especially if you're trading, swing trading, options contracts like we are over Waves Capital. And that's just something that you have to get used to. So that little tangent aside, I'm feeling some big W's in the month of May as well. So let's learn, let's grow, and let's keep the winning momentum alive. All right. So before we dive into the charts again, I do want to cover real quick macro just because there's so much going on this week. I believe 1/3 of all S&P 500 companies did announce earnings or are announcing earnings over this latter half of this week as we move through the first days of May. And we had the FOMC meeting as well. Surprise, surprise, they're not cutting rates and they're concerned about all the strong economic data we've been getting, jobs reports, hotter than expected CPI. Bad news for the Fed. They admitted that today. That is objectively bad news for the markets, and I want to share that. But there will always be diamonds in the rough. And that's why I want to read this last paragraph just before we move on. The markets are bouncing all over the place as I write this, but to sum up my current opinion on the macro, I'm still pretty bearish on most of big tech. It's still pretty bullish on certain small cap gems as well as value and legacy stocks. Okay, so remember, you guys, there will always be diamonds in the rough. There will always be a bull market somewhere. You just have to know how to find it. And that is what I personally do my best to do. And there's no one I'd rather do it for but you guys. So on that note, before we dive into the charts, talk some price action. If you guys want to know what's right below as I scroll here, what my options portfolio looks like, exactly how I'm trading my personal portfolio on a daily basis. If you want that, if you want these daily newsletters that I just read over, if you want my daily trade alerts, which I write every single trading day, that's going to be the first link in the description of this video. It's my complete portfolio, daily trade alerts, and email newsletters. With this, you get everything that this little glowy box here entails for $15 a month, $40 for every 3 months. It's completely up to you. Try it free for 7 days. The reason I do a free trial is because I'm so confident in the product I provide. And if I'm being honest, there is very little turnover, or I should say, I don't know what the correct terminology is, but there's very little cancellations from the 7-day free trial. So I feel very, very good about that. And again, you guys, times have been good. 2024 so far has been amazing, and I'm just really pumped for what the month of May has in store for us, and what the summer months have in store for Waves Capital as well, because I do feel like it's going to be a hot summer. So come ride the waves with us, you guys. As always, if you are a member, it would mean a lot if you guys gave your testimonials below, good or bad, just be honest. And yeah, I appreciate you guys. If you do want to join, once again, it's the first link in the description of this video. And if you do join, then welcome to the winning team. Let's move on to Philip Morris. PM is looking so bullish, and it's rare that I've stumbled across. It's been quite a while. I can confidently say that I've stumbled across a play that has this many stars aligning for it. So we're going to talk about the short term first. We're using 1 hour candles here. I'm going to give you guys my shortest term target, and then we'll zoom out. And I'll talk about why it's looking extremely bullish from a more zoomed out, more macro perspective as well, while we look at the daily candles. Okay, so first things first, Philip Morris had a massive breakout. I should say first things first, what is Philip Morris? So if you guys watched one of my recent videos, it's probably like 3 or 4 videos ago now, I talked about why I believed Philip Morris would crush earnings due to the growth of tobacco-free nicotine products. Zyn is an example. And they actually had some really good news just today, May 1st, where they're now allowed to distribute IQOS products in the United States, which is a very, very big deal. And I do think that contributed to their outperformance today. Okay, Philip Morris really outperformed a lot of the market this morning. You can see Apple, Nvidia down, Philip Morris up pretty significantly. And this is in the wake. This strong technicals, this strong volume is all in the wake of a very, very strong earnings report. So multiple fundamental stars aligning, multiple technical stars aligning for Philip Morris right now. Again, this is a large cap play. Keep in mind, I do think Philip Morris in the week ahead can climb 8%. The reason for that is because I believe it'll test or be retesting this line of broken support as new resistance. That's TA 101. Always remember that. Previous lines of resistance will be tested as new support and vice versa. And remember this also as we zoom out, because that applies here as well, this yellow line. But Philip Morris has all the stars lining. I do think that this line of short-term broken supports will be retested as new resistance. And it's all dependent upon when this happens. But if it happens by May 7th, it would take us to kind of my general long-term macro price target of $104, which is just a level that has acted as both a ceiling and a floor for Philip Morris in the past. But say the stock goes hot, say we achieve it by this Friday. If we see it by May 3rd, by Friday, May 3rd, that would take us up to about 101, 101.50. Okay. And given how bullish the daily candles look, I wouldn't be surprised if we see it. So that's not daily. Let's go to daily candles and kind of get rid of this stuff just because it makes it look too saturated. Okay. So daily candles, let's zoom out here. Once again, as I said at the beginning of this analysis, this is like a technical trader's dream. This is a dream setup, especially considering we just had a strong fundamental catalyst create this technical breakout. Okay. So Philip Morris, as you can see here, has just broken a multi-year a symmetrical triangle pattern. Okay, the line of resistance, this yellow line right here, was the line of resistance on a symmetrical triangle pattern that has been in play, you could say, since really October of 2022. So crazy. We did, with that positive earnings call, break above this, close above it, close a daily and a weekly candle above this line, securing a macro breakout, a macro reversal to the upside. And as I just said, due to my short-term price target, we have successfully retested this line of previous long-term resistance as new short-term support. You can see how solid this line is. We have yet to really close below this line, and that's really what I like to see. So on top of that, we've checked off that box. We've successfully retested that line of broken long-term resistance as new support. 1D RSI, where my cursor is hovering down below, is above its exponential moving average. So that means the blue line is above the white line. 1D stochastic RSI looks like it's about to curl upwards. This looks very, very bullish from a technical perspective as far as the short to medium term is concerned. And once again, we have that amazing catalyst being a successful earnings report and, that news that I just talked about today, the IQOS news, which, I'm not going to break down here, but if you do want to check that out, just Google Philip Morris stock news and you'll probably find it. All good news here. Stars are aligning once again. I think Philip Morris can see 104 over the next week or so. Let's move on to our mid-cap Palantir. So we'll go over the market caps just for preface. Philip Morris is about $1.50 Bs. Palantir is about 50 Bs. And also, before I forget, I almost forgot, the cherry on top, and then I swear we'll move on. TradingView's technical meter is currently reading a strong buy. If you've been part of WavesCap for a while, you know that I don't put a lot of weight on this. I'll never trade solely on this indicator. And I definitely don't recommend doing that, even though, you might find some success, to be honest. But if I have a general thesis, if I'm bullish from a fundamental and technical perspective, and I see TradingView's technical meter. Keep in mind, TradingView is probably the most competent, most elite trading platform in the world. I trust their algorithms, and I trust that they have a pretty good gauge on when technicals are looking good or not. TradingView's technical bull meter is reading a strong buy, and that is the cherry on top of a bull analysis in my mind. So, love to see that. Let's move on to Palantir. Once again, a $50 billion company. Palantir is looking good as we approach earnings on May 6th. And I do think that there's a high likelihood that we play out this inverse head and shoulders pattern. Okay, so let's zoom in and talk about what an inverse head and shoulders pattern is. Inverse head and shoulders. You can see the base is here. That's why this would be the ultimate upside price target of this bullish inverse head and shoulders pattern. This is the bullish, or this is the good brother of the head and shoulders pattern, which is a bearish pattern, okay? So base of the first shoulder here, come up, go sideways, trade within a range, come down, create the head, but then come back up to reclaim levels that perfectly oppose that first shoulder range, okay? Creating the opposing shoulder. This leads perfectly into their earnings report on May 6th. I do think that Palantir impresses on earnings due to the heightened levels of recent geopolitical conflict. That's a big one. Palantir does have a lot of their revenue comes from military contracts, from defense contracts. They are an AI-based company, but they use their AI technologies and AI information, or their information technologies, to benefit the U.S. government. And right now, the U.S. government is probably pretty trigger happy with that defense spending, which leads me to believe that Palantir probably has a pretty promising quarter behind it and ahead of it as well, because the guidance ultimately dictates earnings reports. Always remember that. Okay, so Palantir looking good. Palantir also breaking this line of short-term resistance a couple of days ago, came down just this morning, ended up retesting this line of broken medium-term support as new short-term resistance, higher highs, higher lows in the short term as we lead into earnings. I do think that if Palantir does manage to impress on earnings as I expect it to, that Palantir makes its way up to resolve this head and shoulders pattern around the 25.20 region. $25 to $25.50, give or take a few cents. That is my personal resolution for this inverse head and shoulders pattern following earnings. Personally, I do plan to take some profits when we were to see this 25.20 level. I will take some significant profits from my personal Palantir position. Right now, our Palantir position over WavesCap up, I believe, 40% since inception. We really timed the pullback here damn near perfectly. And if you guys are members of Waves Capital, once again, you can attest to how well we played this Palantir position so far. So Palantir looking amazing. If Palantir can break above, I would say 25.50. If we can see $26 just to play it safe, then I do think that Palantir can definitely end up making its way up to testing my conservative line of resistance on this long-term megaphone ascending channel pattern. Okay, if that's the case, let's go out to June 1st, just so we don't play it super crazy. If that's the case, then I do believe we could see a $30+ Palantir, just $31 PLTR stock by June 1st, if they really, really impress with earnings. Okay, big if there, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. Always know, you guys, my money is where my mouth is. Again, I do have Palantir calls on deck. I have a massive, relatively speaking, Philip Morris position on deck, and I do have a large, relatively, Veritone position on deck as well, even after the rough month that Veritone has had. So let's talk about what I think will happen for the Veritone. This expands past May, but I will say, I will give you guys my hyper bullish, borderline, deranged, too optimistic take on it if they really crush earnings. So earnings is coming up on May 7th. Remember, the catalyst for this recent bull run, which we made a whole lot of money on at the beginning of the month and in late March, was their recent earnings report. Okay, so Veritone's last earnings report was amazing. You can see here going down, Palantir's earnings report. Where is their earnings? Right here. Okay, they missed a little bit on EPS, but as far as revenue is concerned, they absolutely crushed revenue expectations, and they showed their first signs of profitability. That is really what's making me bullish on Palantir, especially in this current macro environment. Profitability, especially amongst small caps, is highly, highly valued. And that's a real testament to the strength of a company, especially as far as sustainability and long-term growth potential are concerned. Okay, so very, very good news. Veritone, is projected to achieve sustainable profitability by 2025. And, you know, this company is doing, I mean, they're doing what, 34 times 4, you're looking at like $130, $140 million of revenue in a year. And it's trading at a market cap of $120 million. So they're trading at less than annual revenue, which is insane for a company that's growing at the scale of Palantir. At least that's my opinion. Always know, you guys, again, money is where my mouth is. So if, again, underline the if, Palantir is to impress with their earnings report on May 7th, then I do think that we can climb back up, ultimately to the recent highs. And if they give good guidance, I think that we could easily climb to these recent highs. And because I do believe this will be a second wave, I think we climb much higher than these recent highs. My longer term, I'll say my summer target for Veritone. And just for full transparency, I will say that I do have August call options for Veritone. Again, if you want to know the specifics, first link in the description. But I do have a multi-month time horizon for Veritone. And I do think that we can see a second wave that will take us up ultimately to about $13, which is a prior low from January of 2022 that is yet to be retested as a new high. Again, previous resistance, new support, previous ceilings, previous floors become new ceilings. Okay? So ultimately, I do think that by the fall, by the end of summer, Veritone can achieve $13 if they impress with earnings on May 7th. If things really, really get crazy, again, short-term, this line of short-term, pretty solid short-term support that was broken and nowhere near retested yet. If things go really bonkers, if we see a real true like hype cycle, wave 2 cycle go on, then I do think that we could be testing this line of broken resistance as new support. That would lead to a 290. This is pretty much 300% 4x in price in the span of a couple weeks, which would be absolutely insane. But given Veritone's market cap, it's not entirely impossible. It's not out of the realm of possibility. This thing's so tiny, it really doesn't take much cash flow to come out of the stock. And because I am bearish on big tech like Apple, Nvidia, the Magnificent Seven, which are multi-trillion-dollar companies with a T. Those are thousands of billions, both Apple and Nvidia, $2+ trillion companies. I do think that the capital flowing out of those companies will want to find a home somewhere. Once again, there will always be diamonds in the rough, and I do think that we really have some winners on our hands. And I'm really excited for the month ahead. So cheers to you guys. Cheers to a volatile but ultimately winning month of April. And once again, let's keep this momentum alive. If you want to join Waves Capital for the last time, it's the first link in the description. Welcome to the winning team if you do. If not, I appreciate you watching this video. I'll talk to you in the comments down below. Let me know what are your favorite stocks for May? What do you think about the stocks we covered? Whatever you want to talk about, drop it in the comments, and I'll see you down there. Until next time, always remember, take action, make waves. Peace.